Welcome to the Uncommon Communicator podcast. I am your host, James Gable, and this is where we bring enlightenment to the topic of communication. Are you ready to take ownership of your conversations? Are you looking to possess the skills to navigate and facilitate conversations to a mutual understanding? Then grab your growth mindset and let's go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Uncommon Communicator. It is my pleasure today to have with me Bob, the idea man, Hooey. Bob, I have to let you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, James, for having me. I am coming to you today from the frozen tundra of northern Alberta. And I say that because we still have winter here. We just had 5 inches of snow 3 days ago. And it's minus 10 out there right now. So I keep thinking this is supposed to be spring, but it's not yet. So I live in a little town called Egremont. I travel the world from here. I have been a professional speaker now for close to 30 some years. I started my professional speaking about 4 years into my Toastmaster journey. And I've been having fun traveling the world, encouraging people, challenging them to get out of their comfort zones, because that's the only time you learn is when you get outside your comfort zone. That, at least for me, it's when I've taken the step and found out there was no net, so that I learned to fly, kind of thing. But it's been a fun adventure. It's been fun so far. I've met some amazing people over the last 35 years in Toastmasters, and I just enjoy doing this.
Wow, it's amazing when you get paid to do what you enjoy to do, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's I'd love to hear more about your international travels too, because I think that is something that and we had a little bit of discussion with another guest where they travel internationally as well too. There's cultural differences, like there's challenges not only just in communication, but even in presenting your message. So have you got some kind of really fun story to tell about an international trip?
Oh, lots of them actually, but we'll pick one. One thing I suggest to people, if you want to travel international, let me take a look. I'm looking up because that's more one of my bookshelves is. I have a book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. That's just up here, and it talks about all the different cultures, not from every single country, but from a lot of them. And you need to be conscious of some of this, because you can, being a North American, we do certain things that we don't even think about, like that would get you in trouble in some countries.
Oh yeah.
Or that would get you in trouble in some countries, because it has negative connotations. But I was speaking in Iran. I was engaged to go over initially for a 2-day strategic management seminar. And the guy hired me, or somehow was able to get me into the country. Wasn't as easy as some people would think. And then while I was there, he sold me to a bunch of other ones. But I was sharing a story, and he was doing the translation. He was doing a simultaneous translation, which means word, which is different than interpreting. And I told a story that in North America always gets at least a giggle, at least dead silence, nothing, absolutely nothing. And so I talked to him afterwards. I said, "What happened?" He said, "I don't know." And so I explained the story to him. And he said, "Well, that's funny. We did an event on the Isle of Quiche. They have an open university it's one of the ones in the Hormuz Strait, in that area where they're having all the troubles right now." And so I told the same story, and the students were laughing, and they were lying on the ground, rolling on the ground the whole bit, because he got funny. He got the joke. But there's one of the little secrets. Humor doesn't always transfer well. So if you're going to another country and you want to share something, make sure the references work too. Check the humor with the person you're talking to. Check the references. For example, if you're talking to a younger group in another country, they may not know the same music that we do. They may not know some of the same icons that we do. So you're giving examples, and they're going, "I don't know. I don't get it. Who's this person?" and you get dead air instead of engagement. And that's where the work comes. You do your homework before you leave home. I do that even when I'm traveling for fun. Like just before I come down to Denver, I'm actually going to spend my birthday in Milan, and then we're going over to Genoa, and we're going to take an 8-day cruise around the the Mediterranean. but I'm still checking out stuff before I go. Like, for example, I found out that Da Vinci's Last Supper is in Milan. So I'm going to go see that. We're going to take a side trip to Florence at the end of the trip because Michelangelo's David is there. And Michelangelo is somebody that I really admire. He's like, even though he's been gone for centuries, he's one of my heroes because of what he did with his life. Yeah. And at 87, he said, I'm still learning. And at 77, I'm going, me too.
Well, what you said, though, is in regards to traveling internationally, doesn't that fit for just not communication, but public speaking in general is knowing your audience. So knowing your audience, whether you know them as auto workers or whoever you're speaking to, you go to another country, it's just about knowing the audience. Like what are the tricks do you do in really getting to know your audience before you present?
Well, I talk to people. And the nice thing about it is with the advent of Zoom, which I really got into using during COVID. I mean, I had used Zoom primarily when I was a region advisor to talk to my district teams as I got comfortable with it. But I'll do that. I get on and do something like this, and I'll talk to people who are going to be in the audience. Because I used to do that when I first started professionally speaking. I'd say, I want to talk to 5 people that are going to be in the audience that are representative of your company. And I'd get on the phone with them. I'd email them and I'd get on the phone with them, because what the CEO wants who hires you is different than what the people who are going to show up in the seats want. Right. And I want to make sure both are happy. Yeah. But do the same thing when you're traveling. Get online, do some research about the country, the town, the city you're going to be in, and talk to people. You'll be amazed what people will tell you if you just ask them questions. Yeah. What's happening in your area? What's your area famous for? What are the challenges that, just like when you're talking to clients, like you probably do with your clients, what are the challenges that your company is facing right now? Then I can help you. Same thing when you're coming in. You're not coming in as the North American guru of motivation and whatever. You're coming in as Bob Hooey to say, how can I help?
Yeah. I think that's something I've heard from a lot of professional speakers, which was really a turn. Like learning that was hearing it and learning it was more difficult than I thought, which is truly like, how are you serving your audience? A lot, just kind of what you just represented. I think there's even people that sit in the audience thinking, all right, Bob Hooey, entertain me. And then you really realize that you're there 100% to serve your audience. And that's a different perspective. Is that a mindset you've had for a long time?
Yeah, it's something I actually learned in Toastmasters. And when I finally got it, that it's not about me. I mean, it's about me in the sense it's my experiences and examples, and I use myself as, here's what I've learned. Like I'm going to do that in Denver. I'm going to share some of the things I've learned in 35 years that hopefully will be helpful to my fellow Toastmasters. But it's not about me in the sense of me being the hero. Once I realized it was about the audience, I started having more fun. I started smiling more. I'm serious. When you mentioned my smile. I have people compliment me on my smile. Or they come up and say, I had a lady come up to me in Cancun. She said, you look like you're having fun up there. And I said, well, let's think. It's December. I'm not at home in the cold. I'm wearing makeup because we're doing a 3-camera shoot. I'm being paid to be here. Yeah, I'm having fun.
I had a similar situation. We were in the Bahamas for one of the conventions. And there was a guy who's working the boat area or something, like handing out towels or something. He's like, hey, you keep doing that, man. And I'm like, what? And I'm just out, we're off on some off hours, and I was just smiling. And you don't realize how far that truly does. It can get you a long way.
I hate to admit it, but my smile has opened up so many conversations with people over the years in traveling. I mean, people are, some people just don't want to be bothered, which is fine. But a lot of times you smile at them, they smile back. I smile at kids. I mean, and then their parents start talking to you, and it makes the time go well. And you meet some interesting people. We just did a cruise last month in the Caribbean. We're Canadians, so in January, February, we do what the smart Canadians do. We go south to thaw out.
You all leave, right? Don't you?
We all leave and go to the south and go to the Caribbean. And so there was a guy that I'd seen walking around the ship, dark tan, white hair, perfectly coiffed, wearing, tailored jackets and just looking like, multimillionaire kind of guy. And then I saw him and his wife one night. We went for dinner, a special dinner, and we got talking. His name is Rich. He's 91 years old. And he said, I decided a number of years ago that I was going to enjoy my life and I was going to be positive in every day. And when he went to come over to say goodbye, he said, my name is Rich. I'm rich in friends. And then he left. That was an experience.
Wow. So you said something, you were talking about getting out of comfort zones. And I think that's something that, and you said for me, I like how you said, hey, it's just my opinion. Science is saying this for sure. So I'll confirm that what you've done has certainly one of the almost only paths to really true growth is getting out of that comfort zone. I think Toastmasters gives people an opportunity to do that. But do you have any examples where, because I know you coach people, where you've helped somebody get out of that comfort zone and have really seen just the fantastic work that can happen from that?
Well, I give you one example. We had a member of our club who was a lawyer, and he had I'm not sure what it was. It was cerebral palsy or something like that. So he really had a challenge speaking, and when he got nervous, it was even worse. And so we taught him to breathe. To take his time to really breathe, because when he took his time and slowed down, then people could understand him. I said, well, you do this when you're doing your stuff at court. And he said, yeah, that's different because I know what I'm doing. I said, you can do that here too. You just have to think in your head, stop and breathe, and then speak out. And we watched him relax, and all of a sudden we could understand him. And that was amazing. Wow. Or another time I was teaching a course, because I used to do that when I was in Vancouver. I used to teach a course that was, they had 5 days with me of 60 days on presentation skills. And a lot of them were English as second language. And there was a lady who was there, and I had them up speaking, because that's part of, because I tell them, you're going to learn this by doing this. And she got up and she stuck. And we've all seen that happen. And she stuck in the class, and the class had said, okay, let her sit down. And I said, no. I got up, I stood beside her, I put my arm on her shoulder, and I said, now just breathe, relax. You know you can do this, and okay, try it again. And she was fine. Because I'd seen that. I saw that at a district contest in Prince George. We had a competitor that stuck. He got about 2 minutes in and stuck. He couldn't remember where he was. And I saw me and a whole bunch of other people that were competitors coaching the guy from this bottom of the stage, going, relax, just back up. Because he backed up, tried it again, tried that 3 times. Just relax. And finally he moved through. He didn't win, but it was an amazing lesson for all of us in terms of we pulled for him so that he could finish his speech and walk away a winner. Yeah. Regardless of what the judges say.
There's so many things tied to public speaking that have to do with life, leadership, really being able to communicate, being able to just be a better human. Because to the point you just drew on, where you're in maybe the biggest fear of your life, frozen, and you have to truly understand that everybody in the audience, and you're talking your competition in a contest, is they're frozen, and you're rooting for them. That's the power of being on stage, but it's the power of the audience. There's so much that's involved in that. And then you can tie that to really any room, not just presenting to, whoever you're presenting to. You're in the boardroom, you're in the office, people, when you pause and hesitate like that, they're rooting for you.
Yeah. Well, and it carries you a long ways. I mentioned to you before we were starting, and I had the one little book that made me $105,000. I had a client here in Canada that was the largest furniture retailer and appliance retailer in Canada, stores all across Canada, 6,500 employees. And for about 5 years, they put me in different spots to help write a book for them called The Brick Way. And I coached all their VPs and whatever. And So we started an online training program called Secret Selling Tips, and their president called me and said, Bob, I want you to book a flight and come to Seattle or to Chicago. And I said, why? He said, there's 10 of us that get together 3 times a year and share best ideas. And you're my best idea this year. So I went, okay. So, and he said, I'm going to get you 15 minutes on the agenda. You can tell them about the Secret Selling Tips. And so I literally spent 3 days creating this little book. I'll show it to you. I may talk about that on the Sunday program, but I created this little book and I took it with me. And at the end of my 15-minute presentation, I said to these guys they're the presidents and the managing people of these 10 big retail stores in the States. If I mention names, you probably know some in the Denver area and whatever. But, and so I said to them, I said, I understand you guys understand concept of selling. And they just chuckled. And incentives. And I said, here's the incentive for you. If you sign up your entire sales staff today, I will create one of these little books for you, personally branded for you, that you can give to every single one of your employees to start the program. 4 of them signed up. It was $105,000.
Wow.
Just and talking to people like people. I could have been awed by the fact of the brain power in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there because of one of the guys who was one of the brains in that room invited me, and I took that as a being, okay, he thinks I've got something of value to share.
Mm-hmm.
So I built on that and said, how can I help you?
Well, building on that, there's not too many people will call themselves the idea man. Bob, the idea man, Hooey. There's got to be a story behind that. And obviously we want to know it.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I tell people, they talk about branding. Branding has been bantered around for the last years. And what I tell people is branding is not what you call yourself. It's what other people call yourself. And I became the idea man because clients started calling me that. I'd sit down with them, we'd be working, and I'd be, well, have you ever thought about this? And I found some diplomatic ways of saying, hey, you're stupid, you missed something. Here's an idea, maybe you've thought of it already, but, just diplomatic way of saying, blah, 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 blah. I mean, one idea I gave one of my clients, made him $12 million the first year. So he liked me and hired me a lot. But, and the one guy said, you're a real idea man, aren't you? And a couple of people had said that along the way. So I went, okay, I guess that's how people look at me. We sit down because people say, why are you the idea man? I said, let's talk for a while. Mm-hmm. And we'll be talking about your challenges, and I'll come up with something, and I'll see something maybe that you didn't, because I'm outside here. I got a different perspective, and I may see something that you don't recognize. That's an obvious to me. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So I bring it up, and that's the idea. And you go, holy mackerel! I never thought of that. Boom.
I love it.
It's like when I was in the kitchen business. One of the books I wrote on creativity is called Why Didn't I Think of That? I used to get that from my clients a lot of times when I was designing kitchens. They go, why didn't I think that? And I just go, well, there's 2 reasons. One, I've got all the training, and 2, I need the money.
and you needed money might have helped you. Oh, I like that.
And the third thing is you're looking at your kitchen in terms of what's there. Like when I'm doing remodeling, you're looking at what's here. I'm looking at what could be. I'm looking with a bare room, and I'm going, what can I create here? That's the difference, a matter of perspective.
Yes. And, I absolutely love facilitating collaboration sessions. I don't know. Some people like to have their superpowers. I don't know if it's my superpower. It's my super love of life. And I've got a saying that says that every idea is a bridge to the best idea. And when I apply that to the meeting rooms, and then I start the collaborations with that, realizing that, every idea is a good idea. And I've seen it so many times where people build from one idea to the next idea, or they even hear a word and it starts another idea. Those didn't happen unless you were in that room creating and facilitating that type of idea creation. I've spent a lot of time diving into that. And I think you kind of bring that naturally with how you show up, and how you present. And when you do that, I love that you were given the idea of the idea man as well too. Like, cause if you came in, it's like, hey, idea man, got any ideas? Nope. Nope.
I tell people sometimes I have no idea,
It's like you chose.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing. people go, well, I'm not funny, I don't know any jokes, and let you sit around and start talking about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, oh, I got one.
Yeah.
That's how it happened. That's like with ideas. If you encourage people to talk, and not all leaders do that, but some leaders are smart.
Mm-hmm.
They put it out there and then let everybody talk.
Yeah.
And then they'll seed it and nurture it a little bit. And well, Bob, tell me a little more about that. George, what you said this, just like what you're doing with your podcast here. You're hearing something I say and you're building on it. I say, Bob, you mentioned this, da 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 da. And using that as a bridge to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that successfully, and the company grows because of that.
Yeah.
It's
amazing how, and then they'll say the credit to the leader of that meeting, and you're the best leader of that meeting when you said even less. You're just planting seeds out there. They come up with the ideas, and there's a little bit of piecing them all together and guidance in there, and then they're like, wow, what a great idea. And it was all, and I really love, especially when people will have that collaboration of ideas. Because I've done this so much that I'll go up and say, hey, man, that was a great idea. And they're like, that was yours. Like, I had no idea. Like, I had no ownership to it, because I didn't truly have, it wasn't 100% my idea, and then you realize that everybody creates it. There's ownership in there. There's a book called Leading with Questions. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
It's the whole idea of a leadership style that involves asking questions. And there's some other, I go deeper into just kind of questions study, and I like to lead with questions. And by doing that, I've had people solve their own problems and give me the credit for it's like, hey, thanks. And all I did was, hey, what would you do?
That's essentially what a good coach does. They help you find the solution. They don't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
A mentor might tell you, but a coach is going to help you discover it.
Ooh, that's an interesting differentiation of mentor and coach.
Yeah.
Because I tend to not micromanage. I want people to have their own ideas, develop their own ideas, and sometimes their ideas aren't the best ideas. But if they own that idea and it's not, so back to, I'm in construction, so they'll come up. They want me to solve a problem for them. That's what superintendents do: solve problems all day long. And most of the time, I was really in this really decision fatigue where you make it like 1,000 decisions every single day. I just started asking questions. Hey, we need a problem. There's a scan light doesn't fit. What would you do? Well, this is what we need to do. Like they asked me first for an answer. I didn't give one, and then they had the answer, and it was sufficient. And so you let them do that. That's just one less decision that I had to make. But the power of that is the ownership that goes to that individual to be able to run with it.
And the next time they're not going to bother you with that question. They're going to deal with it. I give you an example. When I was district governor, which is what they called it in the old days, brand new district governor, I literally went down to TI and visited everybody, which is where I got to know Dan and whatever, and Stan Stills. But I had a challenge on something, and I literally phoned and I talked to Stan Stills, and I said, Stan, here's the thing. He said, Bob, do you have your district manual? I said, yeah, I got that. Because I don't know if they still do that or not, but they gave you a district manual with
made of paper. Bob, are you saying this manual
it was actually made of paper, and they mailed it to me. Okay.
They don't do that.
They don't do that. Well, in my case, they gave me this manual. And he said, do you have it? Yeah. He said, let's just see if we can find the answer together.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you find page 67? Yeah, third paragraph down. Would that answer your question? Yeah, that would. He said, good. Thanks, Bob. Glad to help. Give me a call anytime you need. And I thought about it afterwards. He's probably had, at that time, there were 75 districts. He probably had 75 people like me asking that same stupid question because they didn't read the book.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was so kind. He was just so kind.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, Bob, you're an idiot. He said, let's see if we can find the answer together. And I learned that. And so I brought that to when I was working with my area governors and stuff. One of them, it's interesting, is Pat Johnson, was one of my area governors. She was a past international.
Okay. Yep.
I just found out Thursday night she's coming to our conference here in Edmonton, but I'm with you guys in Denver. So, and I thought, that's darn, because Pat and I were longtime friends.
For the listeners, I think it's important. Let's say a little bit about Pat. Pat Johnson definitely has inspired, I think, the corporate world and how to take Toastmasters into the corporate world. She's got a brilliant book that she's written for that, and has made a huge impact in Toastmasters because of her focus on corporate clubs.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is, and the point I was going to make was, sometimes you can see greatness in people before they even get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't surprise me, having seen what she did as an area governor, that she eventually moved through to be district director and boom, 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 and then eventually international president. Didn't surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm. So that brings up a really great question too, like, because you travel all over the world, you coach people all over the world as well too. I think one of the secrets of coaching and mentoring is what you just said, is when people don't even realize how good they are, and they sometimes often don't, even when they hit those roles. Like, how have you motivated, how have you seen some people? It's like, I see something in you. I think that might even be a Pat Johnson thing. I see something in you, and it's really brilliant thing, because people don't see it in themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the challenge. There's a difference between people who live in their ego, and you and I both know people like that. But the majority of us don't do that. And we tend to downsell ourselves.
Yeah.
We do. We tend to be, the imposter syndrome, and I still fight it after all these years, all these accolades, all the books, all this travel. I still sometimes go, why am I doing this? How come I'm getting a chance to do this? And so I have to remind myself, oh yeah, right, you've earned the right to speak. But people make the difference. I'm trying to put together some stuff for Saturday morning in terms of sharing some bits and pieces from 35 years. And I remember one of the district directors in District 21, I think this was very early when she said, Bob, have you been president of your club yet? And I said, no, why? She said, well, you can't be district director unless you're president of your club. And I went, what? I don't understand. I didn't get that until years later, when I was running for club growth director. And she came up to me and said, why should I vote for you? I said, because you started me down this path 4 years ago. Okay, good. You got my vote. But she saw something I didn't. I just was here to learn to be a better speaker, because I had this dream of traveling the world and encouraging people. I didn't think about the leadership component of Toastmasters. Not at all. That was never my intention. But she saw something I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I've done that for other people. We have a gentleman he went on to be the president of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, went on to be the international president for the Global Speakers Federation. And he did the forward for my Why Didn't I Think of That? And he mentioned that in the forward, if I remember correctly, he said, Bob, you planted the seed. You said to me, someday when you're president, because I saw something in him, and I didn't realize that I did it too. Well, you don't realize what you're doing. We have so much impact on people, and 9 times out of 10, we have no idea. No idea. We said something that encouraged people, that inspired them, that got them motivated, that made them feel better about their lives, and you don't even know it.
Yeah, influence, right? That's, I think, the secret power of influence. And you can't, and if you only accredit to the people who give you good feedback, then you're getting 1/10 of that feedback based on others, their other impressions. Like, I've given this advice to a couple of different district directors and future district directors, because you end up in that role. It's such a great leadership development for any job that you're ever going to do, because you're going to do it in a volunteer organization, to donate your time, and then you put up with some of the crabbiest people in the world, which is why you're laughing, because there's like the 1% or 0.5% are the squeaky wheels. And in reality, you have to, and I had to do this because I was at a point where, like, this is frustrating as a leader. I'm donating my time, I'm getting this, I'm getting all these complaints, but in reality, there were 1,000 people. I mean, that's probably an accurate number of who were really super happy about my leadership. And there's 1 or 2 people who just were the constant squeaky wheel. That applies to life as well, too. You're not going to hear all the good stuff. No. And being able to have the skin to be able to take that is something that really, the thick skin, I guess, develops that leadership muscle. Like I bet you've had some rough evaluations in your life.
Oh, yes. Big time. I actually going to share one of them on Saturday when I was working on the accredited speaker program. It was a long-term goal. There was 7 of us that got together. We made the commitment we were going to go for it. And every month we'd get together and try bits and pieces of speeches. And our commitment to each other was no fluff. No fluff. If you were good, you were good. If you weren't, you weren't. And I tried this one little bit, and Judy Johnson, who was one of the people, came up to me afterwards. She said, "Bob, would you like some advice?" Yeah, she said, here's the deal. To make that speech that little bit you do better, take your beginning and put it closer to your end. Like, huh? And then I got it. Like, that sucked, man. That sucked. But that was her. And I loved her for it because that was the commitment. I thought I was doing something really good. And but that's the point. I think the other thing that's tough to learn is evaluations are simply people's opinion. And they're entitled to their opinion. They're not entitled to live in your head. And one thing I've suggested to people who get into professional speaking, or even don't look at your warm fuzzy sheets immediately after you speak. That's the tendency, because you used to do these evaluation things. Don't look at that first thing. Give it 2 or 3 days so you process how you think you did. Then you're in the right format to look at it and go, this person loved me, this person hated me. Because otherwise you look at it and go, how come this person hated me? Because some people, the better you are, the more they're going to hate you. It's just that simple. Or they're having a bad day and they're taking it out on you. Or they have a legitimate point. When you did this, it didn't work. Yeah. And
it didn't work for them, right? And that, I think that, I became a bit of a feedback junkie. And when I start, I almost don't like the, hey, good jobs, because those don't benefit me. I do like it, we all do. I mean, that's why we do this, right? We enjoy the accolades. We enjoy the pat on the back. Good job. I enjoyed it. But truly, I'm also a feedback junkie to where I want to continuously improve. And a lot of times their evaluations can be a little soft. And then you have the one that's just out in left field. And you're like, they totally didn't get it. Nobody really likes those originally. I like them now because there is a seed of truth in this. And Jocko Willink talks a little bit about this too, is if somebody says something, there's a little seed of truth in there. And he's like, good, that's kind of his response to it, because you take that little bit of a seed. Why did they see it that way? There's got to be a little bit of truth, because if you don't, that's your ego talking. Right. Yeah. Because you want to have that that perception of yourself. Yeah. Those are great stuff.
And the other thing is, if you don't, you miss that percentage of the audience that thinks like that.
Yep.
Because one of the reasons that I don't enjoy it if it's a negative kind of evaluation. I don't physically go, oh yeah, bring it on. It's fun. But if you process it and think about it, or you talk to them and say, tell me why you thought like that, then you grow. Because they're sharing your opinion from whatever reason, but I get better because of that.
Yeah.
And, it's just, that allows me to think, because we want to do a good job for our audiences.
Yeah,
we do. I mean, as you asked earlier about getting prepped, I talk to people before I get there. I talk to people when I get there.
Yeah.
Like I did a program for OK Tire. It's a big national tire dealer here in Canada. And they enticed me to come speak in Cancun in January or February, living in this weather, going someplace warm. And okay. I charged them full fee, but I would have given them a discount if they'd want.
I'll do it for free.
Well, I don't know it for free, but I would have given them a discount, but they paid me full. And the funny part was that they had another speaker coming in to speak to their French dealers. And I knew him because we were in CAPS together. So I was back and forth. And the lady said, you've been so helpful in terms of working with Patrick. Can we give you a couple more days in Cancun? Yeah, sure. But it's interesting. When we got there, they had 300 dealers and they had a receiving line. They had the president of the company. And I literally just stood at the end of the receiving line and I shook hands with every single person that went through the line. Hi, I'm Bob Hooey. I'm speaking tomorrow. I already knew some of them before they walked into my 2-hour program.
Yeah.
It's just it's not a matter of just getting up and pontificating. It's trying to connect with people, because if you connect, you build a bridge, then you can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even if it's from the stage, you can have a conversation, and maybe that builds a conversation that happens off stage afterwards, and that can be just as valuable.
There's so many valuable tips in being, standing in front of an audience that works one-on-one, works on in even just general communication. Because just what you said about that connecting with people early on, and I know you, and I've seen you speak. Like when you're speaking to an audience, you make that eye contact with one person, and you're connecting with 10 people. I mean, there's some kind of weird, I don't know, they're probably going to use the word quantum in there somewhere. There's something at the quantum level that happens when you connect with one person, that it affects, 10 to 15 around them, depending on the audience. And to be able to do that and make connections are some of the, things that you can do from a stage of 300 to 1,000. Making a connection with the audience is something you want to do on a one-on-one basis as well too. It all fits. It all ties together.
It's very similar when you're having a one-on-one conversation. You're basically focusing on them and having this back and forth and making eye contact. You can take some of that to the stage too, like you just said. And it's the same mentality of saying, I'm talking with people, not to people. And that's the difference with those two words, makes a difference in what you do. I'm talking with people, not to people.
Yeah, it's a total twist. That it's the opposite of what people think, and you can see the people that have failed doing it because they just get and maybe they're charismatic enough to carry it, but nobody remembers, right? They might not ever remember what they spoke about. They might have had a little bit of fun with it, but to actually connect and make an impact, it goes back to your, what you were talking about of serving the audience. You're not there just to be Bob Hooey on the stage. You're there to truly give and serve. That makes such a difference. Well, let's pivot a little bit. I know you've got an event coming up, and you've been working on a book with somebody. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we can kind of go into some wrap up after that. What do you got? What are you cooking?
Well, Marty Dickinson, who some of you may know in that area, he's a member of a couple of Toastmaster clubs. He's also the membership member for the Colorado chapter of NSA. And I are doing a program on Sunday morning called Skills Pay. The concept is we already do a lot of things in Toastmasters. We learn a lot of things in Toastmasters that we can take into the real world and make money on, whether it's a new job, a new business, a new something that we create, writing a book, becoming a speaker, all those kinds of things. So we sat down and brainstormed, and this is the fun part of when you get somebody who's creative like you are. we ended up with about 239 things you could be doing with just stuff you've done as a Toastmaster. As an area director, you learn how to do certain things. Here's where you can leverage that. So now we got to bring that down, and that's what we're working on the book and on the program. Actually, Marty and I are going to get together today at 11 to spend some time on the program part to try and bring that into something we can do in 2 hours and give you some solid value when you walk away Sunday morning. But it's an interesting concept of saying there's so many people in Toastmasters that have used what they've learned in Toastmasters to, like in my case, I came to Toastmasters 35 years ago this month with an idea that I wanted to travel the world. My icebreaker was essentially that. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to encourage people. I said that 35 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been doing it. By the time I get to Denver, I'll be 86 countries, and I will have spoken and presented in 33 of them, in person, and about another dozen online. But sometimes that's a matter of stating it and then making it happen. But so we're gonna give you some teasers. We're gonna give you some tips. We're gonna make you think a little bit. We're gonna challenge you. We're working on an ebook, and Marty being Marty said, well, if I can get it done in time, maybe I'll get a few printed. I said, well, let's see, buddy. Let's get it written first, because we got to bring it down to something manageable. It's like this 2 hour thing was actually probably about 4 hours, and now we're bringing it down to we've only got 2 hours with you. And that's something I've learned in my life. And that's one of the reasons I started writing books, because I can't give you everything I can give you in 45 minutes,
Right.
like a typical keynote. But I can give you more of what I do in one of my books. And if you like me, you'll buy a book and take it home. And that's where, I mean, people used to come up when I first started speaking and say, do you have a book? No. Why? And then I've changed and answer the question. Why? Would you buy one? Yeah, if you had one, I'd buy one. Oh, okay. So I started with a little spiral bound book and started selling them. I had 4 of them. And then eventually with the online book things that became bigger, and now there's 30 of them out there.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's a lot.
So almost every single program has a book attached to it.
Okay.
And that just took time, but it makes what I do more valuable, because if they want that, I have some clients that actually will pre-buy the book to give everybody in the audience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value to that, even outside of the ebooks that are so popular. I don't buy a lot of books. I do a lot of books on tape myself, but I find myself buying books recently and having them. I'm interviewing somebody in a couple of weeks where I bought their book because I wanted to go through, because it's a new concept for me. So I'm physically going through that so we can, really understand their content. But I think there's an anticipation that people are going to get a book at this event. So,
well, they're going to get the ebook. They're going to get an e-version for sure.
Okay.
Whether they get a print version, I'm leaving that to Marty. We got to get the e-version done first, because part of it's like, okay, that's good. That's a good idea. And I'm the guy who, surprising myself, being practical. Okay, rein that in.
You had to be the reining in guy.
Just to remind you, I'm leaving for Milan on April 15th. So anything I'm going to do has to be done by the 14th. I mean, I'm going to have my stuff packed to come to Denver on the 14th, because I get home about midnight on the 29th. I'm leaving for the airport at 3:00 in the morning on the 1st, because I got a 6 a.m. flight to Denver. So I'm not going to be I'll be tired. I'm thinking it out before I go. Nice. So I just come home, unpack, repack, get some sleep, go to the airport.
Well, and this will be a couple of weeks before this episode comes out. And by then, hopefully I'll have a link to your book, or at least I'll have definitely any link to anything that you have. I guess let's, in kind of closing up, I've got a couple other questions, but how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of Bob?
The best way is my main website is ideaman.net. And you can put that probably at the end when you're doing this. And, or they can just send me an email at bobhooey, bhooey@mcsnet.ca.
And are you also on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am.
So kind of a couple questions left. One is, what is one thing that people get wrong about Bob the Idea Man Hooey? I think they think I'm an extrovert because of what I do. I really do. And in a lot of ways I am. My wife and I are polar opposites. She's definitely an introvert, and yet she's really good when she has to do stuff. But I'm okay backing off. I don't always have to be on stage. I don't always have to be the person in front. I learned that when I was in leadership. I definitely learned that in terms of doing that. Like I told Marty when we were blocking out stuff for Sunday morning, I said, I don't mind if you do more of this, because I'm certainly having lots of time to speak on Saturday. I'm doing a keynote at lunch. I'm doing something else in the evening. And, so I'm okay with being the with Bob Hooey thing. That's totally fine with me. And let you shine, and I'll be there to help put the spotlight on. Hey, look at Marty, But I think that I enjoy life. And when I'm on stage, I tell people, it's like my friend Darren LaCroix talks about stage time. That's his thing. Mine is played. When I'm on stage, I play. I do my work before I walk on stage. And then when I'm on stage, I just play. I play with the audience. I play with ideas. And if at the end of my presentation, I either have one of two things happen. I'm either totally spent or totally buzzed because the audience has responded, And but I'm okay with being quiet and just sitting down and talking to people one-on-one. Yeah.
Like one thing that's supposedly happening, and I think is unique. Kim said, do you mind if we have people sign up and pay money to sit at your table Saturday night? And I went, hey, if people want to spend money to sit with me, I'm cool with that. If they'll raise money for you, I just hope there's nobody at the table. I'm in trouble,
We've done that before, and that is the fear. Just for the listeners, when we have speakers come in, we had world champions. It was sit with a world champion, sit with an accredited speaker, and so we were able to sell a seat, at one of the dinners with it, and we're doing that for you as well too. But that was kind of always that fear, I think.
What if nobody shows up?
Nobody's like, no. What if we? So it's all right. There's some fun set aside to pay some people to go ahead and sit with you. Well, and then the last thing I like to do on the podcast is, we've spent 45 minutes or so chatting with each other. I know this as a speaker. I know this as a listener. Like oftentimes I'm going to walk away with one thing. And that's kind of, even that is a challenge. I challenge audiences to walk away with one thing as opposed to nothing and just a feeling. But what's one takeaway that the listeners here on the Uncommon Communicator could walk away with as part of our conversation today?
Well, I'm gonna mention something, and it keys in a little bit with my keynote, that when we share our stories and we share connections together, it enriches our lives individually. And I think that's the process of what I get out of Toastmasters is about the people. Mm-hmm. When we share time together, when we share stories, challenges, celebrations, dreams, those kinds of things, we get better. Mm-hmm. We have better connections. We get more support. We move further. Like somebody said, if you want to get there fast, go by yourself. If you want to be there effectively, go as a team. Yeah. And when you create your team by engaging people around you, everybody wins.
Yes,
mm-hmm. They just do. I've just seen that so much in the last 35 years that it's almost become second nature now.
Yeah. Well, Bob, this has been an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you. I think there's some golden nuggets in there that the listeners will draw out. And with that, we'll say to the audience, see you bye.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Congratulations. You made it all the way to the end. You're officially a 1%er. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Uncommon Communicator with me, your host, James Gable. Make sure you like and share this episode. This helps spread the message of communication to the world. Check out our website, The Uncommon Communicator, for more, and connect with me on LinkedIn to keep building those communication skills. See you next time.